large minute total, I think there's some risk. And then obviously there's the injury possibility for both of these guys who have played a lot of minutes, really do have high usage rates. So I don't know. I think that there's a little bit more risk on this team than maybe a year ago.
I think Daryl Morey is banking his job and his reputation as an NBA general manager on how reinvigorated Russell Westbrook will be by a change of scenery. Because he wasn't happy in Oklahoma City, didn't show it really too much until Paul George requested a trade. Then Russ said, you know what, trade me too. But he's going to come out with a huge chip on his shoulder, as I said earlier, and that's going to propel the Rockets this regular season. But if it goes wrong, Daryl Morey could find himself out of a job. So I think the floor for the Houston Rockets is a second-round exit in the West. Okay, might be respectable for some, not for us. And then I'm going to add implosion from within. So if Harden and Westbrook don't work out, Morey loses his job, and the Rockets are stuck with these guys on massive contracts going nowhere. So it's now or never for the Rockets.
I'm going to go one further. I think they could lose in the first round if things break the wrong way. With the amount of talent that some of the teams have come up with, I think that the Nuggets could take even a little bit of a step forward. Obviously, the Lakers are going to take a massive step forward. The Clippers are going to be much better. And I think a team like the Jazz, while I really didn't like their offseason, and we'll talk about them when we get to the Northwest, but I think that if you were to match the Jazz up with the Rockets right now, the Jazz match up a lot better than they did a year ago with the moves that the two teams have made. And if I was a Rockets fan, that would maybe worry me a little bit because you still have a team like the Blazers right there. I mean, I think it's entirely possible that the Rockets could end up first round and out. And so, I mean, this is another team where the range of possibilities is pretty wide. So, yep, I think ceiling NBA championship, worst case, first round exit, which would be, as you said, possibly the end of the Daryl Morey era in Houston.
Well, at least we agree that they'll be a playoff team because imagine they miss the playoffs. I mean, nothing is out of the realm of possibility in the West. So if they miss the playoffs, oh boy, are we going to have a lot to say about the Houston Rockets. We're going to table this for now and move on to the third and final Texas team.
First, we have to do our over-unders, Jason.
Oh, Ben, I'm sorry, buddy.
No worries. So this is one of the ones where we actually disagree. I think this division we're maybe a little divided on, although we actually, I think, came together. I was kind of maybe even more so, but the Rockets over-under number is 52.5 wins. And Jason, I'm going under. I'm not sure I believe in Westbrook, and it just worries me. There's a lot of red flags for me. So I'm taking the under.
I'm going to give Russell Westbrook and James Harden the benefit of the doubt here, and I'm going to take the over, but not by much. You know, they might win 54, 55 games tops in the West, but I think they're still solid enough of a bet with the talent that those two guys have to take the over at 52.5. I mean, if it was set any higher than that, I'd be a little more hesitant, but I'm taking the over.
All right, and now we can move on, Jason, to the third team in the Texas Triangle.
Yay! Yep, so the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, how else can you start the Mavs season preview without saying, hey, it's year 2 of the Luka Doncic era? I mean, Ben, this is your guy. This was a guy that I didn't really know too much about, you know, heading into last year's draft. No, he's going to win Rookie of the Year. You got to watch this kid. Man, he was one of the best players in the West as a rookie. So I could only imagine what he's going to be like in year 2, right? I mean, Luka has to be in for an improvement, borderline all-star type for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this team is really, really interesting. This is the team when right before we talked and we started the show, I said to you, I can't think of a team with a wider win total range. Now, maybe not the range of outcomes, but the win total in the regular season, I could see this team winning anywhere between 30 and 50 games this year, and none of it would surprise me just because they have a stud young player in Luka, and they obviously are basically adding Porzingis off of the injury. You combine that with Seth Curry, Tim Hardaway Jr., some other pieces like Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, DeLon Wright, Jalen Brunson. There's a few pieces here. There's some things to like. I mean, ultimately, Jason, I think that there's a lot of possibility for this team. The question is, can they put it together and play well together as a unit, and can they stay healthy?
Well, health is the key word here when we're talking about the Mavericks. Kristaps Porzingis, hits restricted free agency, gets a huge deal to stay in Dallas without even getting an offer sheet. But he hasn't played at full strength in almost 2 years. He went down. He starts last season with the Knicks, gets traded. And Mark Cuban is banking a lot on this because they trade the farm for him, gave up a couple first-rounders. Then they sign him to a huge deal as if he's been healthy. If things go sideways for Porzingis, that deal is going to look terrible. So I'm throwing a little bit of caution to the wind when it comes to the Mavericks because I need to see Porzingis play. Now, if healthy, I think you could see Doncic and Porzingis enter the conversation of elite NBA dynamic duos. But with the Mavericks, Ben, I'm taking the wait-and-see approach because we don't know how Porzingis looks.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking at a really tough Western Conference. So this is a year where a team that struggles could find themselves out of the playoff race much earlier than usual. I mean, we still don't know what to expect from the Oklahoma City Thunder. I, for one, feel like that's a team that might be a little overrated coming into the season, and the same with a team like the Kings. But when you take the number of teams that are going to be competing for the kind of the last playoff spots, you have those teams, you have the Timberwolves, you have a few other teams. I mean, the Suns might even fashion themselves as contenders for the last spot. So for the Mavericks, it's going to mean that they have to start well. They really have to play well right out of the gate because there's just no room for error this year in the Western Conference. I mean, there's a good chance, Jason, that a team who's looking for the 8th spot is going to be competing with the Warriors, who have just been an absolute juggernaut for the past few years and still have Steph Curry. That might be the team they're competing with for the last playoff spot, Jason. I mean, I think that just speaks to how tough the West is going to be and the hurdle the Mavericks have. And so, I mean, I think the other question is, can Porzingis and Doncic play together? How are they going to do? I mean, what do you think, Jason? I mean, it seems like their games are very complementary. They can both shoot. They seem like they'd be a great pick and roll duo. I mean, what do you think of that combination, and do you think that they're going to fit well this first year?
If Porzingis is healthy, I think it's a great fit because Porzingis can shoot. Doncic is athletic, lethal in the pick and roll game. I mean, the two of them can combine to score 55, 60 points a game if they're both at the top of their games. But you look at the rest of this roster and mention a few of the young players, Kleber, Brunson, Finney-Smith, Wright. They don't have enough. They have some young pieces there. I know you're pretty high on them. I think they need more. I don't think this team is playoff ready yet. Now, a couple of these players can step up and, evolve into real contributing role players in the NBA. But, again, we don't know enough right now to make this kind of prediction. So I'm taking the wait-and-see approach with Dallas. I think they're not ready yet. If I'm going to equate the Mavericks to any team in the East that we've talked about, I'm going to say the Bulls because I said the Bulls, while they may not be ready this year, I think next year they'll take a huge step forward, and the Mavericks could be the Western Conference version of the Bulls. I think the Mavericks have more elite talent. I think the Bulls have better depth right now. So I want to see a couple of these young guys in Dallas step up, and then I'll make my prediction. But right now, I'm just not sold that this could be a playoff team. In the East, maybe there's an outside shot, but sure as hell not the West.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. I think this is definitely a team that you have to wait and see a little bit with. But to me, the ceiling of this team, Jason, is a high 40s, maybe even 50-win team. I mean, if Doncic improves on an incredible rookie season, becomes better, I mean, the sky is kind of the limit for him. I mean, if you look at what he did last year, he averaged over 20 points a game, over 5 rebounds, over 5 assists. I mean, he's in pretty elite company with rookies to do that. And he blew those numbers away for the most part. It wasn't like he kind of just got in over there. And you combine that with the fact that he shot a respectable 33% from 3, which I think portends the fact that he is really a pretty good shooter. And if he can continue to improve that shot, I mean, when you're shooting 7 a game as a rookie and you can hit 33%, you see that percentage tick up a few points. You're a 36% shooter or something like that next year on 8 attempts. I mean, that's like the top of the league type numbers, Jason. I mean, and that I think really kind of gives a glimpse as to what this team is capable of because he could become one of the better scorers in the league in only a second year. And meanwhile, You then think, whew, imagine if Porzingis is at his full strength. I mean, those two together could be one of the most potent combos in the entire Western Conference if they're both healthy and at full strength. So I think the ceiling for this team is high 40s, maybe even 50 wins.
I mean, dude, even if all of those things happen, the scoring numbers go up, the shooting numbers go up, you can't sit here and realistically think this team can win 50 games in the West. They got to play the Spurs 4 times, the Rockets 4 times, the Pelicans 4 times. They got to travel out west, play the Pacific Division. You have the teams in the Northwest. I mean, it's just not there right now. I don't see it. I'm going to be a little more realistic because I'm so cautious when it comes to the Mavs. I'm going to say their ceiling's 35 wins, which is an improvement. A healthy Porzingis is a win right away because then that you have 2 good to great players to build around. But right now, I think 35 wins is a nice, sweet spot.
So wait 1 second here. Wait 1 second here. So this is a team that won 33 games a year ago. Doncic misses 10 games, and Porzingis doesn't play at all. And you think a potentially healthy Porzingis and a year of improvement from young players, adding Seth Curry and some of those other pieces, only nets them 2 wins on their ceiling.
I mean, how good were the Knicks with Porzingis at the helm as the lead guy? Like I said, I need to see more. So I can't sit here as a podcast host and not be mindful of the situation. If Porzingis didn't miss all of last season, I'd say they could win 45 games, 47 games. But I have to be cautious here. I have to be honest to the listeners and to you and I. I don't see it right now. I need to see more. I need to see them on the court. The way it stands right now, September 17th, I think they're a 35-win team.
Okay. That's fair. What about their floor, Jason, then? So obviously you're a little lower on them than I am. I mean, what is the basement floor for this team? What's the worst that could happen?
13th place in the West. Because you look at the bottom of the West right now, you got Phoenix, you got Memphis, and you could see Dallas there. Because there are so many other good teams in this conference, somebody's going to stumble. We're going to sit here and talk in a few weeks about how 2 injuries to the Lakers and boom, they can miss the playoffs. So, you still have Sacramento there. You have New Orleans. You have the Thunder. We don't know what they're going to be. So I think 13th place. I really do. That's their absolute floor. I think they're better than the Grizzlies. I think they're better than the Suns. But you can make a case that all other 12 teams not mentioned are all better than the Mavs.
And you know what? As much as I disagree with you about their ceiling, I completely agree about their floor. I think this is a team that could end up winning 30 games. I mean, I think if Porzingis is injured and Doncic isn't the same guy this year, or just things don't break the right way, I think they could end up right back where they were last year, winning about 30 games, maybe a little bit more. And then suddenly you're looking at a team that really is probably one of the 3 worst teams. I mean, I think you're right. I think they'll be better. I mean, it wouldn't be preposterous to me for even the Suns to leapfrog them, given the fact that the Suns have some talent. But I think one of the bottom 3 in the West is entirely possible for this team, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they got there any more than it would if they made the playoffs and snagged the 8th seed. So, as I said, this is a team for me that I find really volatile. I would believe any range of outcomes pretty much for this team. And their over-under kind of reflects this. They're at 40.5 games, which I think is kind of a number that belies the fact that Vegas and the odds makers really don't know what to do with this team. They don't know if they're going to be good, bad, or somewhere in the middle. So they just kind of chose right in the middle at 40.5 games. Basically, that's at 500. So do you think, Jason, that they will be 500 or over, or will they go under on that 40.5?
I'm taking the under. Like I said, I'm extremely cautious. And listen, this is one of those teams where I hope I'm wrong, because Porzingis does deserve a fair shake to be an elite player in this league. And we're both very high on Doncic, but I need to see more from a healthy Porzingis and from the rest of the roster. So I'm taking the under.
And unfortunately, Mavs fans, I'm right there with Jason. It's hard to put
I thought they were a 50-win team, Ben. I thought they were a 50-win team. Are you taking the under?
If Porzingis hits his ceiling and stays healthy, they can win 50 games. But that's a big if. And ultimately, it's a lot to bet on, especially in a really tough conference. So while I still think that this team's ceiling is very high, I think if you're making a bet on this team, and I think this is the ultimate stay away team in terms of betting, but if you are, I mean, I think you almost have to bet the under because of the